The beauty of collaborative storytelling found in tabletop RPGs is its potential to live on in the imaginations of its players long after they're finished. Sometimes, these stories can even grow into other branches of multimedia, such is the case with Critical Role, once a private game that has since spawned a small empire of live streams, comics, novels, and even an animated series. That series, The Legend of Vox Machina, covers the characters and events of this group's first campaign. Here's hoping it's successful enough to cover all of Campaign 1, from the party's first adventures to their retirement and sunsetting of those characters. And though the dungeon-delving days of Vox Machina have come to a close, their story has since continued thanks to the Tal'Dorei Reborn Campaign Guide. This is a sourcebook for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition which brings Exandria into the games of anyone who wants to explore it. It's full of awesome new items, monsters, and classes alongside exclusive new information about the continent of Tal'Dorei. So if any of that interests you, please check it out. I have it linked in the description. This is not sponsored, by the way. Critical Role is not paying me anything to say that. I just like the book and want to support independent creators. So let this be a warning. We are going deep into full spoiler territory for Campaign 1 of Critical Role as we discuss what happens after The Legend of Vox Machina. Before we get started, I'd like to kindly ask you to like this video if you enjoy it and to subscribe if you want to see more. You can also ring the bell so you're the first to see new content and to help others see these videos by pleasing the ever-hungering YouTube algorithm, old gods. You can also check out shorter, bite-sized bits of content on my Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok pages if that's your thing. There are many words that describe the members of Vox Machina: heroes, scoundrels, legends, and dumbasses. They are a group of colorful individuals who have left behind a complicated legacy. Some will say that they're just bullies, having witnessed their threats and insults firsthand. But there's also no doubt that they have saved countless lives, liberated continents from the oppression of draconic overlords, and saved the world from an undead tyrant god. They changed Tal'Dorei, for better and for worse. Their deeds have been sung about by bards throughout the land, but in the 2 decades since the fall of Vecna, the Whispered One, at their hands, their stories have only grown, almost deifying each of them in turn. It must then be remembered that the members of Vox Machina are still just people. Important ones to be sure, but just people, most of whom have set aside their weapons, armors, and cries of battle in favor of a more quiet leadership that still shapes the face of Exandria. That's not to say that they would not take up their old arms in an instant, should their services as heroes once again be needed, but they are, by and large, enjoying retirement. This can perhaps be most seen in the life the mighty Grog Strongjaw has chosen for himself. The Goliath is still an imposing figure, broad-chested, towering over most he meets, and ready to battle at the drop of a hat, bearing his crimson blood axe, a dwarven thrower, and the legendary Titan stone knuckles. But lines have grown on his face, and the magical dwarven beard he so cherishes now has streaks of gray to match his ashen skin. Grog was always a man of simple pleasures, seeking out battle, women, and ale, but even through his crass manners and frightening blood rage, if there was a single trait that defined the man, it was the love he held for his cherished friends, his chosen family. These bonds still greatly motivate Grog, having retired to live in the city of Western with his best friend and fellow adventurer Pike Trickfoot, and likely following her to Whitestone when she chose to move there. Lord Percival de Rollo of Whitestone had previously granted Strongjaw the title of Grand Poobah de Doink, in charge of all of this and that, a title that Grog takes seriously. No one is actually sure if it's real or not, or if Percy just gave it to Strongjaw as a joke, but Grog likes it, and that's enough. Though he still enjoys a physical contest, even if it's just for sport, Grog's more recent self-imposed challenges have not been for his body, but instead for his mind and the pursuit of knowledge. Despite occasional bouts of well-spoken dialogue, the Goliath had always struggled with his letters and numbers, shapes and colors. But years of study have made him proficient in their wielding. In the decades since the defeat of the Whispered One, Grog has also begun to organize the Luncheon of Champions. Held once every 4 years in Whitestone, this is a gathering of the greatest warriors from all corners of Exandria, pitted together in a friendly all-out brawl before joining Strongjaw for lunch and ale. Using his new, hard-fought knowledge, Grog personally sends out handwritten invitations to those he deems worthy of the title, Champion. He may have also found himself as the owner of a small business. Letters he sends inviting warriors to the Luncheon of Champions are stamped with the sigil of Strongjaw Ale. Given the Goliath's almost mythical love of the beverage, this is a fitting business for Grog to have pursued if possessed by an entrepreneurial spirit. Pike Trickfoot, the little monster of a gnome from the Bramblewood, had always been known for the fire within her. To those she loved, it was warm, calming, and comforting, but it also held an undeniable spark of rebelliousness. That spirit befit her as a champion of the Everlight, spreading the love of her goddess to all of those who would need it. After the defeat of the Whispered One, Pike returned to settle down in Westron, spending time with her great-great-grandfather Wilhand before he peacefully passed away from old age. Pike inherited his house, living in it with her best friend Grog Strongjaw for many years to come. Eventually, Pike also returned the romantic advances of fellow adventurer Scanlan Shorthalt, marrying him and having 2 children, Juniper and Wilhandeldan, or Junie and Wax for short. Still, though they genuinely loved each other, the pair were meant to follow different paths in their lives. With sad smiles and the promise to remain friends, Pike and Scanlan amicably separated once their children were off to school. After years in Westron and with no more family tying her to the city, Pike decided to return to the rest of her found family in Whitestone, where she constructed a new Church of the Everlight in the city's Temple Ward. The structure is beautiful, small and cozy, and a work of art, even down to its smallest detail. Pike spends most of her days here, tending to the gardens and helping those who come in search of it. She also stops by the Slayer's Cake Bakery many mornings, ensuring that the pastries are as tasty as the reputation they have worked so hard to cultivate demands. Though Pike and Scanlan's lives diverged, they have still found ways to make good on their promise to stay friends. In the summers, Scanlan usually visits Whitestone, enjoying simple pleasures with their family. Sometimes this includes dinner with their friends and comrades. Other times it includes music. And oftentimes it's just reminiscing about good times past and loved ones lost. Sometimes Pike and Scanlan even end up in bed together, though sometimes not. Either way, the kind-hearted cleric is still not one to cross. She still holds gauntlets of ogre strength, a pair of boots of speed, and the mythical plate of the Dawn Martyr, which will turn the warmth of Pike's heart into fiery oblivion to that which would threaten those that she loves. Scanlan Shorthalt, braggadocious bard of ages, champion of Ioun, the knowing mother, and free spirit who adores traveling the world, seeing new people, and ensuring that none of them ever forget his name. And yet, through all of the adventures of Vox Machina, Scanlan found something worth settling down for, his friends and family, even if he is not the best at showing that affection. After the fall of the Whispered One, Scanlan would propose to his long-pursued paramour, Pike Trickfoot. By this time, her great-great-grandfather had passed away, so Scanlan left flowers at his grave in lieu of asking permission, instead asking their mutual friend Grog Strongjaw for his blessing. Pike and Scanlan would be wed in a grand ceremony, and eventually produce 2 children, the aforementioned Juniper and Wilhandeldan. Shorthalt was a caring father to the pair, refusing to miss out on their youths in the same way he'd failed his daughter Keyleth so many years before. Before they wed, Pike had told Scanlan that she never wanted him to feel tied down, but the bard assured her that he felt most free when he was with her. Still, though they would remain good friends and occasional lovers, their paths were not headed to the same destination. After their children were off to school, the pair amicably divorced and went their separate ways, promising to remain friends forever. Despite approaching his 100th birthday, the youthful gnome's appearance has remained much as it did during the height of Vox Machina's adventures, save for a slowly receding hairline and a developing belly. Alas, ever the vain showman, Scanlan has insisted on hiding these modest signs of aging with an expert comb-over, his trademark beret, and well-placed illusion magics, all in service of appearing portrait perfect at all times of the day. Scanlan has also grown a mustache, believing that it makes him look distinguished. I'll let you decide if he's right. Though he summers in Whitestone with Pike and their family, Shorthalt spends his winters in the city of Ank'Harel, where he and his first daughter Keyleth operate their high-end trading business, Meatman Imports and Sexports. The work suits the bard and requires he travels all across Exandria, meeting new people, seeing new places, and singing songs of Vox Machina in crowded venues throughout the world. These continued misadventures also allow for myriad opportunities to find himself in trouble, but thankfully he still carries the legendary Mythcarver as his personal weapon, and his hat of disguise to move about unnoticed on the few occasions he may desire such. There may be only one rival in the world to the endless wellspring of confidence that is Scanlan Shorthalt, and that would be the gleaming and resplendent Tarion Darrington. Though his time with Vox Machina was significantly shorter than any of its other members, much of the bluster and bravado he bluffed through his life is no longer fake. Tarion is a genuine hero and adventurer, counting both his time walked with Vox Machina and the path he carved for himself after they parted ways, even if that responsibility weighed heavier than he expected. Immediately after returning to his home in Wildemount, Tarion founded a new adventuring group he dubbed the Darrington Brigade. Though, after publishing several entirely true, unexaggerated accounts of their heroic adventures, Darrington realized that he'd accomplished much of what he set out to as an adventurer, and so he left his home in the Dwendalian Empire to begin a new chapter of his life. The Darrington Brigade was left in the hands of his sister Marion Darrington and their confidant, Lionel Gayhart. And yet, adventuring was now in Tarion's blood, and he would end up traversing the most dangerous corners of Wildemount, setting up several smaller satellite franchises of the Brigade. At some point, Tarion realized that he'd spent most of his career authoring non-fiction adventure books, and decided to try his best to weave entirely fictional stories instead. Darrington, alongside his husband Lawrence, moved into a small writing college in Port Damali. Here, while Lawrence tutors local students, Tarion has been busy writing novel after novel. The most successful books are a series he calls the Deastock Mysteries, centering on a young, handsome, brilliant blonde man and his trusty robot sidekick solving crimes around Wildemount. Obviously, Tarion is very protective over where he gets his inspiration. Still, from time to time, Tarion visits Whitestone to catch up with his old friends and compatriots, enjoying the memories of their time together as Vox Machina. Darrington's trusty scribe and major domo Doty has also received upgrades over the years. Now known as Doty X, or Doty 10 as Tarion must frequently and patiently explain, the mechanical servant is still vaguely humanoid but remains unexpressive. The new model, while sleek and stylish, has not been built with battle in mind, and his vocabulary has grown to 6 words. Terry. Yes. Correct. Absolutely. Soon. And of course, handsome. The automaton also features a built-in chamber that acts as a shelf of Tarion's favorite books, all of which were written by Darrington himself, of course, just in case he needs to make a sale while on holiday. Lord Percival Frederick Steen von Musil-Koloski de Rollo III has lived a fascinating life full of joys and regrets. His family deposed and murdered, the man himself thought long dead, battling personal demons both internally and externally before joining Vox Machina and helping to save his home and the world twice over. Now in retirement, he helps rule Whitestone as the architect of enlightened progress, responsible for the construction and infrastructure of the city and its castle. Truly, Percy is renowned for his creations throughout all of Exandria. As a young man driven by vengeance, he invented the firearm and changed the world forever. He has since expressed gratefulness for not dying as that angry boy, having grown into someone better alongside his beloved wife Vexalia and their 5 children. Vesper Elena, Leona Pike, Wolf Christoph, Vaxel Dan Frederick, and Gwendolyn Zara Melanie. The scars of Percy's past, however, still live on in this new family. His daughter Gwendolyn a tiefling, her infernal heritage most likely originating from Percival's dealings with the demon Orthax. Percival is deeply dedicated to that family and to the city of Whitestone, resolving to spend the rest of his days creating things that may bring joy to others as recompense for the creation of firearms, an act that still haunts him even as he does his best to make peace with it. He now considers his crowning achievement to be the heart of Whitestone, a majestic clock tower that rises above the rest of the city, tracking the movement of the moons, stars, and spheres, and depicting famous moments and people in Whitestone's history. After the defeat of Vecna, Percy himself has largely retired from public life, now dedicating himself to his duties within the Chamber of Whitestone as much as he can. Still, his true passion lies with creation rather than governing, leaving much of the leadership of the city to his sister Cassandra. Most of his tinkering is private, forging novelties such as watches or street lamps. His vast intellect and knowledge of civil engineering has also contributed to several new, important structures throughout Tal'Dorei, including a skyport in Whitestone and Seraph's network of windmills. Percy also still owns the vestige of divergence known as Cabal's Ruin, ready to mantle the cloak again should the need arise. Of course, we cannot talk about Percy without mentioning his better half, Lady Vexalia de Rollo. Vex has become a woman of many titles and roles. Hero, Champion of the Dawnfather, Legendary Archer, Baroness of the Third House and Grand Mistress of the Grey Hunt of the Chamber of Whitestone, and Master of Commerce of the Republic of Tal'Dorei. She is, without a doubt, one of the most powerful and influential people on all of the continent. Over the past 25 years, Vexalia has become a talented and respected leader as Grand Mistress of the Grey Hunt, a title she held before marrying Percy, protecting the city and establishing diplomatic relations outside of Whitestone. Though the Grey Hunters she leads use guns inspired by her husband's designs, Vexalia still prefers a trusty bow. In fact, she still holds the vestige of divergence known as Finthras, and though Vex has mostly left her life of adventure in the past, she does occasionally lead the Grey Hunters in the field to eliminate threats to both her city and her country. When Vexalia and her husband pushed for Whitestone to be formally recognized as a constituent city of the Republic of Tal'Dorei, her legendary financial savvy preceded her, and those who knew the name Vexalia de Rollo clamored to elect her to the Republic's council as coin mistress. She has naturally taken to the role with aplomb, her capability with coin making her a warrior for Amon at the negotiating table, where the weapons are golden and the treaties trade deals. She now makes frequent use of the newly installed teleportation circle in Castle Whitestone, making it possible to fulfill her duties within both the Chamber of Whitestone and Tal'Dorei Council. Vexalia's confident nature and resolution even in the face of unspeakable despair, of which she has sadly had her fair share, has cultivated a reputation that precedes her. The tales the bards tell of her revolve around her cunning mind, flirtatious charm, and ability to haggle for the impossible, born of the difficult, impoverished childhood she led with her twin in the wildlands of Tal'Dorei. However, the hardships she has been forced to endure have not tarnished Vex. She is still the same woman from the legends, just with some new gray hairs, responsibilities, and unrivaled love for the 5 children she and Percival are raising in Whitestone. Even her beloved animal companion, the brown bear Trinket, can still be seen at her side. Age has slowed him somewhat, but his young cub Charlie has joined the family as a well-behaved playmate for the youngest of the de Rollo children. Another of Vox Machina's alumni to hold significant influence over Tal'Dorei is Keyleth, Voice of the Tempest. After completing her Aramente, Keyleth stepped up into the leadership of her people in Zephyra, and as an archdruid, she has not physically aged a day since the defeat of Vecna, the Whispered One. However, her heart has grown weary since the loss of her beloved Vax'ildan, a fact depicted in most every official portrait painted of the Tempest. Most capture her melancholy visage gazing over the ruby sunset beside a pink blossom tree, stoic under the weight of what she has sacrificed for her people and the world they live in. Still, she does not scan the skyline dwelling on the setting sun, instead seeking its next sunrise. Despite the pain, the Voice of the Tempest does her best not to dwell on her past. Keyleth works herself busy to fill the void Vax'ildan has left in her soul, and remembers the joy of it all in equal measure. Burying herself in that work has left her with rarely a free moment to herself, and those she most often spends in Whitestone, where she owns a small home. She has overseen the expansion of the Crisis Orb network across the realm, so no surprise attack like that of the Chroma Conclave could ever happen again, and she has worked with her friend Percival de Rollo to build a series of windmills across the summit peaks of Zephyra. The Archdruid has also helped train a new generation of Arashari heroes to help Tal'Dorei in much the same way Keyleth did during her time as a humble adventurer. Though those who met her during her early days would remember Keyleth as an awkward woman stumbling over her words, she has since grown into a powerful, charismatic leader speaking tactfully calculated words. She has done everything within her power to ally the Arashari with the rest of the Republic of Tal'Dorei, creating a union better prepared to rise against threats such as the Whispered One and the Chroma Conclave. Her will, heroic reputation, History with Vox Machina and mastery of elemental magics has earned her many allies. But there are those entrenched within the elite of Tal'Dorei who view Keyleth as a threat to the kingdom's stability, and it's not difficult to imagine why. She is a powerful nigh immortal whom others may view to have nature at her beck and call, who will not visibly age for centuries and may live for millennia. And on top of that, she still wields a vestige of divergence, the Spire of Conflux, though rumors have swirled that she's looking for a new, younger hero to carry on the vestige's legacy, to take the tool and use it to do good around the world in smaller ways, just as she once did. In fact, Keyleth rarely adventures anymore, preferring to hire others to tackle the world's smaller problems as she deals with the bigger picture. Thankfully, Keyleth's life has recently been blessed with a gift thought long lost in the past. After disappearing and presumably dying during her own Aramente nearly 30 years ago, Keyleth's mother Villia recently strode from a tree in Zephyra less than a year ago, and understandably, Keyleth has rarely left Zephyra during the months after Villia's reappearance, making up for lost time with the family she thought long dead. Though she never earned the title Voice of the Tempest herself, alongside her husband, Villia, who escaped death, now aids her daughter in leading the people of Zephyra, prideful in her daughter's accomplishments. Despite the air of stoicism the Voice of the Tempest projects, in private, Keyleth's practiced public face falls away. Especially in the presence of her old friends, Keyleth reveals herself to be the same eager, enthusiastic idealist she has always been, just with a few more sorrows shading her soul. She often expresses these to herself on a hidden forest trail in Whitestone that she walks alone in peace, conjuring the same snowdrop flowers that Vexalia walked into the afterlife on as she goes. To save his sister's soul, Vexalia Visar promised his own to the Matron of Ravens, and she came to collect after the defeat of Vecna, the Whispered One. But some say that shades of the man still occasionally visit from the void. Death comes for all things, as is the cycle of all life, and the Champion of Ravens is there to shepherd those who fear that their time has come and lash out against it. For one with such an intimidating appearance, a wrathful angel wreathed in raven feathers, his sympathetic soul soothes those he shepherds along the next step of their journey into the realms beyond our mortal world. Though this Champion of Ravens is not Vexalia, a shard of the half-elf makes up the spirit's whole. Some say he still bears Vexalia's face, albeit masked, or that he still bears the vestiges Vax collected during his life. The armor of the Deathwalker's ward, and the dagger called Whisper, the pommel of which now links to 2 raven feathers. But death is an intimate thing. Who knows what it comes for you as? The legend of Vox Machina is long and storied. To some, it's only just beginning, and to others, they're adventures of the past. If you'd like to learn more about the world of Exandria and the lore of Critical Role and Dungeons & Dragons, please like this video and subscribe for more of that in the near future. I also cover other fantasy, sci-fi, and superhero stories here on the channel, so I hope you check that out. And if you want shorter, bite-sized bits of content, please go check out my Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok pages if that's your thing. As always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.